Welcome again, Keepers of Light. And I call you that because you are just that, Keepers of Light. So, yesterday was my birthday, and I'm gonna just talk about it a little bit and then move on. So, I find that every single birthday that I experience does play out like a rebirthing of sorts. That there are like two different elements that happen. I'll either mostly start off with a mourning period of time and then eventually work my way into a celebration. And that's exactly how it played out yesterday, where by there were moments where I was mourning, kind of mourning, these expectations that I had for myself, expectations that I hadn't met yet. And, having these moments in time that we're specifying for celebration doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to be entering into it. For me, like I experienced both. I experienced both, and I think in a way it's kind of, you know, telling of the perception that I come with when I am having experiences. It really kind of even now, okay, even kind of demonstrates the type of personality that I have, where I used to kind of get into like arguments, not really arguments, but I would get into disagreements with people because it would seem like I'm playing the fence because I'm not necessarily going, picking a side. Like I wasn't ever really inclined to feel as though like I have to pick a side because it just always it mostly ever felt irrelevant to me, particularly when I would see both sides and I would kind of see like, okay, if I said this, then it just means that now it appears as though I'm supporting this side, or if I do that, then it means that I'm supporting. And it's not necessarily like a bad thing, um, when you're looking at have experiences being supported by what end that you have in mind to achieve. But when you have an end in mind to achieve that was kind of much, I'm not going to say bigger, but if I just had a completely different end in mind when coming into this incarnation. So, there have been times when things have been difficult, and, just to integrating and just showing up in ways that, feeling as though I had to show up in ways that were agreeable to other people. But I've come to a point where I'm realizing that, and making peace with showing up in a way that may be disruptive to a person's process. Not in that way where I'm kind of like, I'm here to destroy and ruin everything for you. But in that way that if I show up in as clear a vessel as I can be, then what does occur, whether it is a disruption in that way where now it's actually appearing to cause a collapse, or a appearing as though it's like destructive, that it's I have no control over that. So it's the same way when I've looked at past situations and seen how I've blamed myself for many many things, that now when I look back in retrospect, I'm like, how could you really blame yourself for things that happened as a consequence to just showing up in that state where you're not picking a side. So I guess what I'm saying is like we're we're in this reality where we're kind of told that we must pick a side. And this is not to say like you shouldn't make a choice. I do see how it's a difficult point to make because we are here also making choices, and we're actually directing ourselves, in different ways given whatever goals that we have in mind to accomplish. So my message is more so just about how what I'm really doing here, what I've really been up to. The secret is out of the bag. And the okay, so I was talking about being things in retrospect. I tend to notice things in retrospect when I'm looking back. I'm like, oh, now I get it. Like there have been many times when I've come and drawn conclusions to why I, took particular steps and, come to the conclusion that, okay, this is because, tied everything together just by looking backwards. Damn, I feel like sometimes I'm just so. Oh, what was I about to say? I was about to say that I've really just been recruiting you guys. I'm on this channel recruiting Keepers of Light. And this just came to me in retrospect. I'm like, isn't it obvious that this is what I've been up to? And but what am I recruiting you guys for? And it's mainly for this new way. And I had this vision like years and years ago where I was in a human body, but it wasn't necessarily my body, but it felt like it was more like the human body, like the idea of what a human body would would be like in context to this evolving environment that we are moving into, and how that upgraded human is participating in that reality. So I was seeing it and I was like, okay, you know what? So this is what we're graduating to. And then, fast forward years later, and here I am having these, these chats with you guys. And I'm now realizing, having spent like 3 years doing all this, that I've I've been asking you guys to jump on the wagon of entering into lucid living, which is to say that a path of unfolding awareness, expanded awareness, and a path of connecting to your higher senses of selves and living from that perspective, which differs from the perspective that you might be living in now, in that way that you're kind of like hopping back and forth. And it's almost like, like if say you're like preparing for like a trip to go to, vacation, and now you've got like your list of, things that you're going to take, and you got your itinerary, you got the plans when you get there, what you're going to do, you've got everything laid out. Now, that's just the map, you mapping out what you want your experience to be. And it may or may not look like how you envision in your mind, but you have an idea what you're heading towards. And so that's kind of how I've seen my life, where it's like I have an idea, even at these moments that I'm speaking here, I have an idea what I'm going to be saying, but I don't necessarily know how that's going to come out from me. And lucid living is much in the same way, where there is a certain level of trust that's required, trusting yourself at this very deep level, that that and the only way you really can is because you've unwound all of the different ways in which you've seen presented to you in your lifetime of what you don't want to be. And not because there's now less of a potential for you to, well, I guess there will be a less of potential for you to be that, because when you're raising awareness, you're now seeing all the different pitfalls and all the different ways in which you could become subject to becoming that which you're not wanting to become. And so, forging and creating within yourself a sense of self trust and moving forward into a reality that doesn't necessarily have an answer for you, other than what you're getting in terms of intuitive messaging that you can pick up on from, because as a lucid participant of this reality, you are given the tools which themselves don't necessarily exist from this outer perspective of of solidity that I've been here kind of repetitively talking about, but exist in this invisible realm of help that is there, designed to be ready for you when you're needing to access those points of help and assistance. So that's, that's kind of, that's lucid living. You're clear. You have a sense of clarity about who you are. You do not and no longer are living from this perspective of not being worthy of having an experience that you're choosing to have. You are coming from a deep understanding that you're a divine being here to call forward the experiences that you are desiring to call forward to you. And here I am. I started talking about my birthday and started talking about, and I talked about life and death being the same thing yesterday. And in that regard, we are experiencing a rebirth of the human being right now. Yet there is a death component involved in that way, that we are kind of mourning who we have become, that we didn't want to become. But at the same time, it's having those experiences that create the potential for us to move into better versions of ourselves. And so it's important not to get stuck in those moments of mourning, and to get to a moment where you're in a more celebratory state of beingness, because the experiences that we have, regardless of how much regret that we have about what it is that we haven't achieved, regardless of that, there is still the higher level being of us that exists within us, that would also celebrate those very moments of mourning, those very moments of regret, because those very moments themselves also represent opportunity, and they also represent deep levels of learning and understanding, and and therefore deep levels of knowledge of truth that we can use in terms of moving forward to our next steps. So when I come on here, I try and just share how I do things versus tell you what to do, but how I do it, because I do recognize that each human being, the human being, has an individual and unique and specific ways to their functionality. And I guess, let me put it to you this way: I have to honor that you have, just in the same way that I honor myself in understanding that I have all the tools and I have all the ability that I need in order to move into the next step. I trust that you also have that. And so when we meet like in this way, it's like we're activating one another. I talked about, kind of being an initiator yesterday, but at the same time, I'm seeing how every single being who I come into contact with, every single being that comes into contact with me, that we are activating one another, and that we are filling in gaps of information, and that we are becoming one in that way, where we are fulfilling that one purpose of 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 having experiences um, on this plane. So lucid living is about, on the one hand, having the awareness that you have the power and that you are the one who's creating your experiences. On the other hand, allowing yourself to have those experiences. There's this fine line between awareness and having the experience, having experiences and having the awareness that you're having experiences. They all exist at once. Yet sometimes forgetting is necessary in order to allow yourself the opportunity to aggregate the learnings that are necessary for the evolvement of your soul. Evolvement is a word. Let's make it a word. So I look in retrospect to my lifetime, and I see how it was very necessary for me to have made all those mistakes that I have made. Even though I have many regrets, I'm also cognizant of how important oh, sorry about that. I'm also cognizant of how important it is for me to have mercy on myself, because the path of being human is not easy. Being human is kind of like signing up for like everyone's got like their analogies about being in this human life. Some people say it's like some people call Earth like the prison planet. Like I wouldn't go that far. The ghetto planet or whatever. I wouldn't go that far. But at the same time, it's not for the weak hearted. If you are in this existence, you are not weak hearted. You are a strong being to have incarnated in this on this plane of reality, and to be having the presence of mind to check in the way that you are now checking into yourself, like that requires a certain level of awareness of the self that only has more so a potential to expand, particularly at this period of time when the earth herself has called out for help, and we've got the cosmic energies coming in to help propel us into making these adjustments within the overall energetic system of of systems, so that we can begin to have newer perceptions and therefore newer experiences. So, all right. So where am I getting at? I'm at 1752. Okay, I was talking about lucid living, and I talked about awareness, which is why I go back and back and back again and again and again to the same topics. I have to kind of circle around in this, so that because it feels like what it is it feels like I come on here and then I'll pick up on the gaps, like it's your presence and your energies that I pick up on what those gaps are that are needing to be voiced. So and that's really my work, what I've been having um, to work on this entire lifetime. What I remember is what I remember is like kind of feeling like, okay, 1 minute telepathically communicating with my starseed family, and the next minute, like all forms of communication is like severed. Like it felt like that. But now when I look back, I'm like, no, it wasn't. It was just muted. Like when you turn down the volume so low that you don't pick up on the signal, and really it's the same way. Like if you look at reality as been like the analogy I just used, the volumes, your higher sense of self is your higher sense of self is at that really low volume, and you're just kind of like eliminating all the different layers of noise that are above that. And once you have and once you connect there, you begin to guide yourself in ways that you never imagined that you could have beforehand. You begin to engage in those, to energetically engage with your body in those ways that allow for the body to demonstrate capabilities that are beyond even the contextual understanding of what this earth realm represented. And so the earth herself will be expanding to that level of experience that will likely, I won't say negate, but it will make for a totally different existence when it even pertains to the laws of the laws of, gosh, what do I want to say here, the abiding laws of what constitute the structure of the makeup of life on earth. We're expanding beyond that. And so we're going to have abilities that access to abilities that we once hadn't had before, but not because they weren't there, but because our awareness wasn't on that. I look back in retrospect to my life and I can see how it wasn't just this aspect, that same aspect of the volume being really low. It's just that aspect of just me saying that it was my level of awareness that got muted. And but I never let me see how I can put this into words. So I was existing knowing these things and having to learn how to put into language and how to connect what I'm knowing, but to connect it to the experiences of what knowingness constitutes, what knowingness is on the 3D plane. So it's like there are certain things that we all know, and for me, it's like, okay, how do I put that together and to create one big picture so that now when I am speaking to you and engaging with you, it doesn't necessarily feel as though like I'm speaking gibberish, because that's like an art, and I've had to learn that art uh, throughout my lifetime. So I do remember having those moments of having memories of telepathic communicating with my starseed family, and then after that feeling as though I was completely disconnected from them, and then having the experience of not being able to engage my to engage languaging. Like I stuttered a lot, and I probably still do, But this time around, it just kind of, I'm still working my way to having a flow. And so all this is really practice for me too. Like I'm practicing in front of the camera, and I am getting to that point where everything will be more fluid, and that what I have to offer in terms of messaging will be more flow flow will be in a more flowing state of beingness going forward. Because the more it is that I do this and connect here more and more, then the more that I forge the neural pathways, and the sense of knowingness solidifies within me, so that when I am speaking, I'm speaking from a level of oneness. Versus here, it kind of feels like I'm coming from so many different directions, trying to put everything together, and I'm hoping that everything is coming clear enough to you, so that you're picking up on what it is that you are here to hear, because you're here to hear something that will resonate to some level, whether it is that you are resonating to that degree that now you're like, this person's crazy, I never want to hear her again. You're still, even when you're objecting to things, they're still at that same um, ex- within that same experience of objecting to it, there is still an acceptance within, because everything, like I said, exists in this realm that we're in. Both exist. Like there's two sides to everything, and the quicker we learn how to see that there's two sides to everything, and if you just want to take that as like the ending message to this message here today, that there's two sides to every single situation that you're in, then you will be in that state where you're living from this empowered state of beingness, which I call lucid living, which you are heading towards as human beings. Because there it presents you with an opportunity to look at your life as having and giving you the tools, all of the different tools that you can use right there in front of you that you can choose from in terms of addressing whatever situation that is at hand. So, and also to creating whatever experience that you're wishing to create. Um, I'm going to leave this message here, and let me see. Oh, celebrate. Okay, so the guides want me to go back. Okay, so I started off talking about mourning and celebration. So yeah, we are. If you are mourning your life, if you're mourning the ending to any factor of your life that has been put to an end because of factors that appear to be outside of yourself, or if you're aware that those factors are really coming from you, it kind of doesn't matter. If you're in a state of mourning, honor that. Allow yourself to go into into looking back at your life and examining how you were a participant, how you were a participant to the experience of the unfolding of that which you have determined has gone wrong or have determined has come to an end. See what your part and role was within the context of what aspect it is that has ended in your life. See that and honor that, because that was your soul journey up until now. And that soul journey was really in preparation for this moment of celebration that is at hand. And it does not mean that now you're celebrating all the time, because we're really at a place where um, the celebration is more about the rebirthing than it is about experiencing the newness of things. We're still at this point where we're reconstructing and healing and and learning how to become clear about who we are as human beings in the first place. What it is that's available to us in terms of our power to create these to create these experiences of reality that will one day mean that we are all celebrating together. In that way, now you're just listening to this, and we haven't even really come together. But I am recruiting here. I'm recruiting. I'm recruiting you guys to join me on this journey and to activate me in those ways that will help me to help you. And I look forward to that. And I can't wait until the next session that we have together. Until next time.